Good, good. Setting up so I can get a good view.
Yeah, I love your background. Oh, it's so colorful and
Thank you.
beautiful.
It's a mermaid. I painted this many years ago.
Oh, I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me before we start or anything?
No, not really. I don't know.
No, I guess
I
we'll
I
find
love your I love your Instagram though. I love watching you on on your surf journey as well. As a curvy woman, as a lot of us aren't out there and you know how hard it is as curvy women to be in a world where everybody's super stick thin and to pop up on waves. People don't
Thank
realize that it's curvy women. We are the real goats of being in surfing because
Yes.
it's easy when you're like a size 0 to 3 to pop up on a wave and ride a wave. I mean, you're just popping up.
Right,
But
right.
when you have like natural curves and top heavy, we're badasses.
You know,
So
it's
I
really
enjoy your
interesting.
journey.
Oh, thank you. It's really interesting. I actually had this like revelation because I want to work on cross-stepping and nose writing, and I was like
Me too.
thinking, oh, good, yeah. And one of the things that I have like one of these workshops. It's about your surf persona, like what you think about yourself in surfing. And I
Yeah.
realized that I had this idea that only like young, thin women can cross step and nose ride because on Instagram, that's really all you see. And I was like,
Yep.
oh my God, if that's what I'm thinking, how am I supposed to do that? Because I don't identify with that. And so I had to
Right.
really be like, wait a second. I have to like start finding people that I identify like my body type with and really imagining what it would be for me to do it because I completely was limiting myself in that just because the lack of exposure, the
Yeah.
lack of like representation.
So basically, we're pioneers. We're pioneers. We are setting the standard.
You are absolutely a pioneer. And my favorite thing about your account is that you dance every time before you get into your surf session.
Yes, you got to keep the body moving, and stretching sometimes I forget to stretch sometimes, but I don't forget to dance. And dancing helps me to stretch because dancing is something that I've always loved doing. I'm from Gen X, back in the break dancing era, pop locking and stuff like that. So I've always loved dancing. And it's like, you know what? That's my natural flow. That's my natural flow to move the body. And it keeps it almost helps you to ride the waves a certain way because you're learning your own style. You're learning how to glide, because if you watch other surfers, like when they're practicing, when they're like in a camp or something, and what professional surfers, and the coaches are teaching surfers, and they're doing like certain moves. So I'm like, hey, that's the wine. That's us winding. Okay, let me do that, and let me loosen up my spine a little bit. So let me dance instead. And it keeps you in shape because doing like these Instagram reel dancing and TikTok dancing, it's a lot of coordination. So keeping up with those the different types of rhythms and stuff helps you to stay. People think it's just actually just dancing, but you're really keeping a lot of flow, movement, the chakras in your body aligned. You're keeping open. You're keeping the high frequency going. So it ain't just dancing, but I
I love
make it look
that.
fun.
Yes, you do. You absolutely do. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Mimi, you've been surfing for 11 years?
11 years now,
Okay, tell
yes.
us how you got started.
Oh, how I got started. Well, I when I was an empty nester, I decided that I moved here because I wanted to have a beach life, of course. I wanted
Where'd
to
you
have a
move
beach
from?
life. I
Where'd you
am
move
originally from Detroit. Detroit, Motor City, hey, stand up. And then I moved on the West Coast 20 years ago, though, Vegas to here. So after raising my three children and them having their own lives, I was like, okay, it's time for me to do something else. Because prior to surfing, I had just lived one type of life. And I think when you have children, it's a whole different lifestyle. when you're raising children, because you really sacrifice a lot for children. And it was like, what can I do that's just uniquely mine? And I always wanted to have a beach life. And so that's particularly why I moved here, even though I was a part of the Hollywood lifestyle I mean, I had a private room in Paramount Studios. I was already doing like a couple of reality show people. And so actually that brought me here first.
Mm.
But it wasn't filling me up. And I said, I needed something. I was praying like, God, I needed something to really fill me up. I needed something that catered to my spirit. And that was my goal, something that catered uniquely to my spirit, something that made my heart light up. And I was like, oh yeah, beach life. People come here for the beach life, but they get caught up in the Hollywood life.
Yeah.
And the Hollywood life for me was not sustainable to a healthy lifestyle, vitality. Even though I still have my Hollywood people, I still am sort of in Hollywood. I still do executives here for a living, my private clients and everything like that. But I started going to the beach. And it's funny because when I was at my spiritual center, I used to hang out with a group of women who we all used to go to the beach together, dressed up, and we would go sit on on our blankets and have our food, eating for the day. And these people were from California, and they never we were at the ocean, but nobody was like talking about the ocean, being in the ocean. We just sat up and looked pretty. And I was like, this is it? This is all we're going to do? You know? And I'm like, well, what we going to do here? And so after a year of that, I said, you know what? I have to just be by myself for a while.
Mm.
So I started riding my bike on the beach, and I was just like, actually, this is funny because when I was with this group of women, this guy hit on me, and he was like, hey, can I get your number? He was walking with us for a while and talking with us, and white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes, and we all cracking up. We like, what is you doing over here? And I'm like, no, you cannot have my phone number. This is Janet Jackson, not Pamela Anderson. You got to know what you're doing over here. You can't just be over here experimenting. So I turned him down, right? So a year later, after I got out of, I was riding my bike down the beach path, Manhattan Beach, and there was this guy walking through the pathway with his board in his hand, a towel on, chiseled abs, and I'm looking at him, and I had this big afro, and he's staring at me in the middle of the bike path. And as I passed him, he's looking at me like, oh my God. And I said, oh, I remember you. I said, how you doing? I remember you. And he was like, what? You remember me? Do I have your phone number? And I was like, no, you don't have my phone number. And so that started the conversation. And it was the guy that I saw a year ago. And I'm like, oh my God, you're in the ocean. You surf, you know how to do boards and stuff. And he was like, yeah. So it ended up having a conversation, and he asked me out on a date. And I was like, I'll date you if you teach me how to be in the ocean.
Yes.
I was like, I really wanted to learn this. I'm a great swimmer. I've been swimming pretty much all my life. I taught myself how to swim. So I really want to be in the ocean. And so that's how we began. And he was like, get you a wetsuit. He thought I was playing. He's like, get you a wetsuit and I'll teach you some things. And I said, okay, how do I know that you know how to teach me something? And he said, well, I was like a #1 bodyboard champion. So, a bodyboard champion of the world. I've surfed all over the world. I've been in every ocean. I've, been with sharks and everything. He was a champion bodyboarder. So I was like, okay, this must be it. And I was happening to get my income tax check the same month, and went and got a wetsuit, took a picture of myself in a wetsuit, and I was like, I'm ready. So he called me and he was like, are you serious, huh? And I said, yes, I am. He said, okay, if you're serious, I'm going to put you in danger in the water. I'm going to put you in impact zone, put you in undertow, put you in currents, put you in dangerous conditions, but I'm going to teach you how to survive and ride waves, and we're going to have some fun. I'll see you in the morning. And I was like, oh my God, what? What the hell? I was like, hold up. I'm a Black woman. I don't know what you're talking about. I ain't asked for all that. I just asked. And I remember I didn't sleep for 24 hours. I was tossing and turning all night. I was praying to God. I was asking God a lot of questions like, Lord, have mercy. I'm going to be widowed. with a blonde hair, blue-eyed white devil. And what is going on here? I did not ask for this, you know. And I was like, wow, he was in a bike path. I met him a year ago. I have to just trust, you know, who else gonna
Yeah.
teach me this? And so I was just like, you know, well, if I die today, you know I have lived a good life. So this is a good way to die. It's a good way to die is to have a good adventure. If you gotta go, then you go some kind of way. And so I'm
Yeah.
choosing this today. You know,
And you
some people,
survived?
yes, I survived. And so for 6 months, I just listened to his voice. I didn't even think about myself. I was so scared. I just listened to him. I was just like, I'm just going here and we're at this ocean. And he was like, okay, this is the thing. These are the waves. This is such. You got to read the waves. And he really was like a hardcore teacher. He never had taught before, but he really showed me how to read the waves. We went up and down the coast from Northern California to Southern California,
Wow.
every single beach that people, honestly, here in California sometimes have never seen. You know, he knew every beach and we went to everyone and he taught me how to read the waves. We watched videos together, different types of videos. And I just learned a lot about the ocean.
Yeah.
And he was a junkie. He was an ocean junkie. So it
Yeah.
made me an ocean junkie. And I'm the kind of person that everything in my life, I go hardcore. I don't do anything halfway. I just go 110%. If I don't go 110%, I don't do it. And I came from a background of being a hairstylist where I won, you know, like trophies, championships, world's best braided before, all kind of, I used to do competitions for 10 years in Detroit. So I've always been a goal accomplishment type of orientated person.
Yeah.
So him being hardcore, meaning me being kind of hardcore, was like both, you know, it just went with my
Yeah.
personality. And we were
Yeah.
both vegans, we were both plant-based, we both, you know, love plant-based. So it was just a wonderful experience. And then I think 8 months, 7, 8 months into it, I saw two Black men that was coming out the ocean with surfboards, and I was like, huh, Black people surf. Okay. So I took a picture with the guys. I had them take a picture and put it on Facebook. And somebody said, hey, do you know it's a Black surfers group here? And I was like, what? Okay, let me go. Let me go. And when I saw all the people of color, because it was like Black, Latino, you know, Indian, it was just all these different mixes. And I was like, what the hell? It just was mind blowing. Because I mean, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, you really didn't see a lot of us in the water
Mhm.
compared to I guess since, you know, 2020, you
Yeah.
know, when COVID happened, George Floyd, I think it made more of us get in the water. And um, there was some things that happened then that pushed a lot of people more where it was like only two surf groups back then, two
Yeah.
Black surf groups, to now being 10, 11,
Yeah.
I would say 20, you know, groups of surfers of color where it just wasn't there
Yeah.
before. And so when I was surfing, I would only see Black people once a week on the water. And when I got into this group, I was like, oh my God, you know, so they was having free surf lessons. I didn't even stand up on a wave for at least the first 6 months. And that's one surf lesson. I end up, you know, hiring some instructors. I went to Seal Beach for like 4 months, and I every single every single like 3 times a week I drove 5 o'clock in the morning to Seal Beach to have surf lessons. I only stood up once then, but I was committed, and I was still bodyboarding. And it's one thing about bodyboarding, it really teaches you how to be in the wave, how to be in a curl of
Hmm.
the wave. It gets you in touch with the ocean a different kind of way. Having those
Yeah.
fins on gives you your sea legs. And I think a lot of people miss that step. They just go right to
Hmm.
surfing when they
Yeah.
really don't learn the fundamentals of how to actually flow with the water.
Yeah.
And what does the water feel like? And being in the conditions of the wave, they just go straight to, you know, it's a trend. I just want to
Yeah.
hold my surfboard
Agree.
and be sexy and get in the water and everything's going to be good. And it's a lot to it. And after I took those surf lessons, for 2 years straight, I never got the water. I was just like in the water 7, 8 a.m. in the morning for 2 years straight, 4 or 5 days a week before work. Sometimes after work, I was just in it. And what's interesting is when I was bodyboarding most of the time, I would meet a lot of seasoned professional surfers, and they was like, "Hey, come hang with us." And so it was like, well, I'm hanging with the surfers, and bodyboarders aren't really, they're very introverted. They don't really
Uh-huh.
talk. They're not really, I wouldn't say they're the most friendly group. I mean, it's like almost, they're not very friendly. I would love to see more women bodyboarders,
Hmm.
really groups of bodyboarders. And actually, this year I have been seeing more. I've been seeing like slowly but surely. But the men are they're like oh boys. They're like boys.
Yeah.
They're like a group of bros, like romance guys that really don't, you know, take to women a lot. So I was always alone a lot in it,
Yeah.
if I wasn't surfing with Dan. And because he was on the road a lot, he was actually in entertainment himself and he was building stages. So he would be gone for like 7, 8 months at a time,
Yeah.
places and doing stuff. And I just, he helped me and I just kind of went on a whole
Yeah.
different path with the surfing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think my stoke just ignited a lot of people. It just inspired a lot of people. And I just started collecting people on the beach. Like every Thursday, I went every Thursday for a long time, 7 a.m. in the morning. And I just started collecting Black people on the beach. Like every time I saw somebody Black, I was like, hey, you surf? I surf too. Let's go. You know,
Yeah.
to where for a while I had my own little group because outside of the Black Surfers Collective in the summertime, once a month, it was like you're on your own.
Hmm.
And I realized there wasn't a lot of, you already know there's not a lot of women out there, especially year
Yeah.
round. There's not a lot of year round surfers that, especially in the wintertime, the conditions are hardcore. You know, it's more men. It's
Yeah.
always, 70% more men
Yeah.
than women. It's not always friendly unless you go to the same break.
Right.
It's not always, and half the time the women are not even friendly. I
Right.
would say men are more
Yeah.
friendly than women. Do you find that? Do you find that?
I yeah, it's almost, and I've heard that kind of like that idea of like this women have the scarcity mindset of like I'm the only woman here that I can only,
Yes.
and it is really interesting because, and I feel you on that because when it is a lineup full of men, I already know that my mentality has to be a little bit more fine-tuned, that I just have to calculate better as a surfer to show that like I'm a decent enough surfer to be here so people won't drop in on me and stuff like that. And
Right.
yeah, and I do feel that sometimes when there's another woman that you get both. You get both. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's
Mhm.
so great to have another woman out here.
Yes,
And then
right.
sometimes you're like, I'm competing more with her than anyone else.
Exactly. You never,
Yeah.
it's so random. Like
Yes.
every day in surfing is random. It's like, it's so, everything about it is unpredictable.
Yeah.
Either you're going to have the
Absolutely.
best day ever and
Right.
everybody in the lineup is amazing, or everybody's looking at you like, what, why are you here? Go back.
Exactly.
And it's like, I've been surfing here. This is my break. Like, what the hell?
For people that don't like have an experience being the minority in the water,
Mhm.
how can you describe what it feels like to be around people that share your culture, share your background, and that you can share that in the water with them?
What it's like to have people share the culture with me. It's like feeling protected, like, oh my God, feeling relatable. It's a
Yeah.
relatable feeling, like we're in the same, we didn't come from this world.
Yeah.
Like generally most of the people that we see who are really good were brought up in this culture. Their
Yep.
grandmother, grandfather surfed, they came through surfing schools. They grew up in surfing schools. Like there's a million surfing school or
Yeah.
hundreds of surfing schools along the coast. They grew up in these beach
Hmm.
areas. They've had this leisure access. So being my minority in surfing is like, oh my God, somebody relatable that we know that this is our first time experience that, you know, 2, 3 generations ago, for me as a Gen X, two
Yeah.
generations ago, my grandmother, my grandfather could not surf. They could not be in the
Right.
ocean. They had to fight. Literally, people was dying trying to
Right.
get in the water. This is post Jim Crow. There was segregation. So for me, it's like I am with people, who are not only relatable, but understand what we've been through as a culture,
Yeah.
and can relate to, wow, knowing that they may have my back, because you don't always know if somebody else has your back.
Yeah.
You don't know if they always, and they don't. Honestly, they don't. I think in 11 years, I've had only 3 people, non-Black people, non-people of color, who've actually had my back in the water. Where a guy was giving me shit, and they were like, "Hey, you don't have to deal with me. Leave her alone." Other than that, people are like, "Oh well, that's on you."
Yeah.
And when you're with somebody else, people don't mess with you as much. They're like,
Hmm.
okay, they got somebody with them. So it's like having somebody have your back. And of course, it's like having a buddy system, because you
Yeah.
have to have somebody that has your back in the ocean. That's just proper surf etiquette, just the rules. And so it's a comforting feeling. Now, 11 years later, I go a lot by myself. I
Yeah.
don't really have to go with people. I literally can almost go anywhere along the coast and know at least 1 or 2 people, from San Diego to Northern California. And people know me more than I know them. People be coming up to me and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'll be like, "Hey, like, who the hell is this?" And they're like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen you in a while. You've gotten so good." I'll be like, "Oh, okay." But I guess, because as minorities, we're not the majority in the
Right.
water. So people remember us way more. So, but I still, and that's actually why I keep a camera on my board and I record too,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
in the beginning, I didn't have a camera. I wasn't recording. And then as I learned surf etiquette, I decided, oh, let me get a camera and just record myself of how I'm popping up on the board. It started off
Yeah.
as that. Let me record myself. Let me see how I'm popping up, because an instructor can only teach you so much,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know, especially as curvier women. They can't teach you, they
Right.
don't understand how we pop up. There's a different kind of way. The movement of the hips, the movement of trying to get, a 38D up and up, you know, on a way. There's different. And so I started doing that. And then I remember watching the footage, and I remember me looking a certain way. I didn't know that there was 2 guys on each side of me that were
Hmm.
doing like face and hand gestures, like their secret language. And I remember feeling a certain way. I'm like
Yeah.
frowned up in it, and I'm looking at the camera like, wow, I felt an instinct. And then I see these 2 guys on the side of me, and I see them curve around and decide to try to take the right of way. I had the right of way, so they tried to
Yeah.
go around me and cut me off of a wave. And I was like, oh, okay, this camera now is for my protection. It went from me learning, trying to see how
Yeah.
I'm surfing, to
Right.
protecting myself at beaches I go to. And I found that when guys see that you have a camera on the board, they're less
Yeah.
likely to bother you. They're less
Wow.
likely to start stuff. Some forget, they don't always see the camera. They're so
Yeah.
like bothered that you're there. They
Yeah.
even don't even realize that there's a camera on the board. And I catch them sometime, and I post it, of course.
Yeah.
I'm posting it like, yeah, I caught your ass
Yeah.
in 4K. And and so, it's like documenting that journey, documenting my journey of surfing, documenting the people I meet along the beach, the people
Yeah.
that's relatable. I can see how when I'm comfortable in the water, how I'm just a whole total different person. You can see me happy that day.
Yeah.
And then there's other days where I'm just like this, walking around, you get out to the lineup and everybody has their poker face and they're like looking at
Yeah.
you. And they're bothered because because you're not even saying hi first. Like, some people expect you to go out there and say hi first. And it's like, if I feel it, I feel it. If
Right.
I
Right.
don't, I'm not saying anything. If I go out there to the lineup, I mean, with instincts, after a while, you build your
Yeah.
instincts. You know if people are happy to see you or if they're not.
Right.
You know if people don't care or they don't. You know, if people are frowning at you, if they look at
Yeah.
you like, why are you here? You know, you automatically know. So
Right.
I'm not going up there cheesing, ha ha, hand in your face, and I already know you don't like me. You don't like me, I don't like you. That's just it. That's where I came from. You don't like me, good. We all have an understanding,
Right.
but don't bother me. Don't get in my way.
I
Don't mess
love
me up because I'm a destroy your board. If you cut me off, I'm going to ding your board on purpose. Just so, and people have done that. I have a board, my cream board that I just use for ding, that I just use to ding other people's board. If you cut me off, if you snake my way, I'm going to hit you on the board. I'm gonna warn you. I'm gonna have surf etiquette. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give you time. I'll let you cut me off one or two times. I might let you, but
Right.
the third time, nope. I'm gonna let you know I'm here, and then it's all of a sudden it's an argument, and then they think you crazy. Oh, you think I'm
Right.
crazy now? I don't care what you think,
Right.
because I let you do too. I let you try too. So that's why I do post those videos too, because I
Yeah.
want other minorities to see, other, people of color to see that, hey, this is what happens to us in the water.
Right.
And you need to be aware of these things. It
It's
ain't just all like getting out there and you have your own experience.
right.
You have your
Right.
own experience, but you also have a lot of things going on in there.
Right.
And sometimes people who've had all the access in the world still get mad that you there. It's like, damn, you already live here on the beach. You came from wealth and all this, and you still mad? You still mad? What's wrong with you?
There's nothing that's going to make them happy. Wait,
Yes,
so one thing that I love that you talk about is you're talking about microaggression, micro racism,
yes.
microaggression in the
Mhm.
water. And what I find, and I'm not black, I'm Filipino, and I'll tell
You're
you, like,
Filipino,
yes,
okay.
I'm Filipino. So
Yay.
I kind of have this experience where I experience microaggression, and I also know that the consequence back on me because I'm not black is different. The
Mhm.
imagery back on me, generally, usually what I feel is people think, oh, she's submissive, oh, she's
Yes.
petite, oh, I can push
Mhm.
her around. And what's
Mhm.
interesting is I've had experiences in which I'm out there with friends and I'm like, why is it that I always get in a spat with someone? I start realizing, oh, because I surf with lots of white girls. I'm the
Yes.
only one that for some reason is always getting pushed around in some way. And then the same thing. It's like if you push me 3 times, I'm not gonna say something. I'm gonna say something. And I've had to be like, that's not me. It's not my fault. I'm not out there starting this shit. But for some reason, it's me they pick. And I
Right.
love that you just explain that so well because there's so many people that don't get it. And I'll say, no, they're doing it because I'm brown. I'm with you guys. You're
Mhm.
all tall white girls. I'm brown. They see me as
Yes.
submissive. They see me as, hey, that girl's gonna do what I tell her, but I'm not gonna do what they tell them. I don't know. You
They
just
pretend that you're not there.
yeah
Like I've had so many guys say, "I didn't even know you were there." Oh, you cut me off. I am in the lineup. I'm sitting right next to you, and you pretend I don't exist. Well, I'm here. And
yeah
that's why sometimes I'll say, Black woman in the ocean, here I am. How y'all doing? Black woman in the ocean, how y'all doing? If I notice a certain, energy,
yeah
and
yeah
people just staring at me like, damn, what are y'all staring at? But yes, it's actually irritating when people don't understand the microaggressions, or it's almost like, when you're hanging with white people, it's almost like they have that colonial mindset in a way too, that they are not tapped into.
hmm
Maybe that
yeah
they don't realize that they're part of that systemic racism.
yeah
They might have good intentions, but they're still a part of it and they don't understand. And I don't know how at some point we need to tell them about that, because they're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, they're just having a bad day. They
right
always, oh, they're just having a bad day. Oh, don't just ignore them. Hell no, I'm not going to ignore them, because this happens too much and they don't
yeah
realize that this is something that has happened over our lifetime. Sometimes you have to, I ignore it because it's like sometimes it's just too much. But
yes
other
yeah
times I'm froggy. Other times
yeah
I'm ready to go. Other times I'll meet you ass in a parking lot. I will. Or I'm gonna have my friends meet you. I'm gonna have my bro meet you in a parking lot. You know, because sometimes I don't think you have backup.
right
And and I'll have, now, because there's a lot of different people in the water, and I know a lot of people will be like, hey, just let me know if anybody bother you. And I don't know somebody like, down the beach a little bit, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
you just let me know. You just holler and I'll come that way, you know. But yeah, it's like sometimes it's too much.
You know what I found interesting too is sometimes I will recount like a story. I had this incident happen to me at the airport a couple weeks ago. That I was definitely like, oh, it's because I'm brown. Like, I mean, I don't know why every rule did not apply to everyone else, and suddenly at the end of the line, the rule applied to me, and whatever. It was this whole thing.
Right.
And when I retell the story, pretty much like, like you said, 75% of the people, even people that I know, even that people that might trust my word on other things, have some kind of explain away as to why it wasn't
Mhm.
because I was brown and I'm petite and I looked submissive. I don't know, the things that I'm pretty sure why. And it's even though they may not be white, there is some kind of like mechanism in which they have decided to block whatever microaggressions have maybe come into their life, and then they repeat it back to me in a way that I am then gaslit for a second time, that
Mhm.
oh no, it's now I'm thinking like, well, I don't want to share this story with anyone now because people are just telling me I'm wrong.
Right.
So it's very courageous of you to just come
Yeah.
out and be out there and like point out that these things are happening, because a lot of people do not understand it on that level.
Yes, because somebody has to, and I relate to what you're saying. A lot of people discount microaggressions because a
Yeah.
lot of people just like to, honestly, they like to shuckle and jive.
Yeah.
People just like to, oh, I don't know, nothing's going on. They just want to blend in, and they think that their experience is going to be better. They think because they pretend it doesn't happen. Well, there's two sides. The people that who who are non people of color who see it, they are a part of the systemic racism. They are indoctrinated, and they do believe that there's some parts of us that's supposed to be submissive, you
Yeah.
know. And especially too, if you're a beautiful woman, if you're a beautiful woman, people automatically feel like, oh, you must have had so much privilege in life, so girl, please, child, please. This is only one thing. They don't even want to
Mm.
discount your system because there's two things going on with that, you know. And then people who are your same, who people of color who are your same, they kind of, people are scared. People are actually, there's not a lot of people
Yeah.
who are just willing to stand up for themselves,
Yeah.
and that's why we have so many, that's why self-help books are a multi-billion-dollar business. That's why,
Yeah.
confident people end up going viral because people are like, oh, you have confidence. Oh, you're brave, because I don't know. Most people are not as brave to speak up. So
Yeah.
somebody has to. And if you don't speak up for yourself,
Yeah.
it's not like bullies. What I actually learned in Detroit is, just because somebody is a bully and you submissive, don't mean they're going to stop bothering you. They're
Yeah.
actually going to choke you out and put their foot on your neck
Yeah.
and watch you slowly die. So you have a choice. You can't. We've seen bullies never stop.
Yeah.
And I think because I grew up in kind of a rough environment, I saw a lot going on. And being a woman that looks a certain way, lighter skinned woman, you have some fights. You go through some stuff, you know, and you got to be a fighter to keep your pretty face. So I'm not a person that's going to let somebody bully me,
Yeah.
because I find that the faster you call it out, and you know what honestly, when you're in the water too, I noticed that once you call it out, they leave you alone. They will call
Right.
you crazy and act like you're crazy. And they'll be like, oh, she's crazy. She's aggressive. Woo, woo, you. And it's like, you just have to not attach to that. And I think a lot of
Right.
people too are scared to be called crazy. They're scared to be called, oh, you're so aggressive. And so that's why I do show these incidents with my camera on the board too, to
Yeah.
show them this is what happened and this is why I responded. And I ask questions first.
Yeah.
Well, why did you do that? Well, why did you think you could say that to me? I'm not aggressive is when you just or emotion lack of emotional intelligence is when you just something happens and you just fly off and do something. I ask people
Right.
questions like, did you know I was here? Why did you do that? You know you hit my board. Did you know you snaked me? Did you know that I have the right of way next? And they just fly off the handle and make it like, oh, I'm so aggressive towards you. And that's when I go to the next level. I'll just
Yeah.
escalate too. You escalating it, I'm gonna escalate.
Yeah.
And then people, I mean, it's almost like, I mean, I think there's a certain aggression that everybody has in the water. People go through it. People minimize your experience too because they're
Yeah.
like, well, everybody has an experience in the water where we go through stuff. Yeah, everybody does. But I would say people of color, we actually have more. We go through it a lot more. And especially as women too. Especially as women, we just happen to go through it. And there's sometimes guys that are just get mad, you know, if you look a certain way.
Yeah.
There's men who just get mad and just want to start stuff. So yeah, it's something that definitely needs to be talked about more and studied.
I appreciate you. I mean, I feel that as I've grown as a person, as I've grown my life experience, as I've had more experience with, I think I would say my most defining is with a bully. Like I was in a relationship with a narcissist, and that really
Mhm.
taught me the range of how bullies operate. And so now I'm very attuned to this is not okay. And
Yeah.
and with having the like articulation now to call it out and understand it, it's a lot easier. But as I was younger, I've always kind of been like, I want to be outspoken, you know, I want to say that this is wrong, that's not right, like it's not okay for me. But you carry a lot of that shame, especially when you're a little
Yes.
younger and you don't know how to articulate that somebody's doing something wrong to you. And so it's just taken a lot of time to get to a place where I'm like, I don't care what other people think. This is wrong. And same thing, incident in the airport. My voice was raising. I'm like, you guys can all look at me because this is
Yes.
wrong. And it
Yes.
just for people that want to speak up, it just takes time to get there and it takes practice and it takes knowing in
Mm-hmm.
yourself that your moral compass is
Mm-hmm.
correct and you should stand by it because I think it's I mean, sometimes, and like what I'll say is like, I know I'm a Filipino woman. I know if I raise my voice, my the escalation on me is very likely to be a lot lower than if a black woman were to raise her voice in the airport, right?
Mm-hmm.
I look young, I look small. They probably think I'm 20, whatever, you know? So in that sense, I sit there and I'm like, I have the words, I have to say something, not just for myself, for other
That's so
people who
awesome.
yeah, I'm like for other people who cannot say something, I have to. And I know they're not gonna,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it makes me a little bit emotional just because this was recent. This is recent that happened. And, I know that they're not gonna take me down to whatever
Mm-hmm.
office. I know they're not. I can feel their limit. What they want is for me to submit. They want me to just say, okay, okay, you know? But what I feel, and it was really interesting in that moment, in these moments, and it becomes a little bit clearer now, but you feel that microaggression that people cannot validate. Other people will not validate for you. And what it begins to do, and I recognize this last time, is I start to feel these other moments that have echoed when I was younger, where I didn't have the tools to identify the microaggression. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the verbiage. I didn't have the language. I might not even remember exactly what happened, but I felt this incredible heaviness of like, I know what happened today, and I know that this has happened throughout my life in some points in time. And
Were you
that's
taught to be submissive in your home and to be
in the
um
sense, yeah, immigrants
I was
generally,
too. I
yeah,
was too.
yeah,
I was taught more, ladies should be seen and not heard. And so it was the only time I did, I always knew how to stand up for myself because I was a very quiet person. I've always been kind of, my look throws people off, but I'm more introverted than I look. And
yeah,
so I was always quiet. And sometimes being a quiet person makes people think, oh, that you won't stand up for yourself. And I was
yeah.
taught to be shy. So that's probably why.
It's definitely like immigrant mentality would be, oh,
Mm,
don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat.
yeah.
We're here. We're grateful. Don't
Yes.
rock the boat.
Be
Yes.
thankful that we free now.
Yeah.
We
And
free. You're the
and
first
so
generation that's free. Just don't make
right,
noise.
right. It's so nuanced. It's so layered. It's so refreshing for me to have
Yeah.
a conversation with someone that understands the things that like
Yes.
I've definitely been feeling. And all of
Layered
this.
is that perfect word. It's so layered.
And there's no one right way to react to every scenario, everything. And the other thing that I think it boils down to is I've had people, I was creating a surfwear line. I was going into the surf industry. I was walking into stores and I finally was like, they don't want me here because I'm a brown girl. I finally just said it. I was like, I see it
Why
now.
at a surf shop?
Yep. Yeah. I'm like,
I've had
these.
that too. That's why I only go to one. I only go to one. What? Tell me about your experiences because oh my
So,
God, I.
yeah. So in the most sense, like I was selling clothing. And so
Mhm.
I would go in and I would, pitch I was completely professional. I had everything that I needed to have. And I would just notice that people wouldn't want to take me seriously, wouldn't want to talk to me. There were certain stores that they would set up meetings. They would let me do the whole pitch. They would put it in order. But there were very obvious ones that just would kind of like, I remember I walked in and had taken a while to get an appointment. And one of the guys was like, show it to her, a shop girl with 15 years
Mm.
old, zero decision making
Wow.
power. Show it to her. And
Wow.
so, I'm showing it to this girl, but I'm trying to pull this guy back into the conversation because he's the decision maker and just kept blowing me off. Like, and I'd had instances that happened here and there just like that. Meanwhile, I
Wow.
see some
That's
of the
deep.
brands, right? I see some of the brands that are in there, and I've seen the people that run those brands because when you run a clothing line, you see the same people at the same like pop-up shops and stuff you do. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that brand right there, those guys do not take their shit serious whatsoever. I see them dicking around
Mhm.
all the time whenever I do these pop-ups. So I really got the sense like these people don't want me here. And
Mhm.
I don't feel that I need to be in this part of the industry where I need to prove myself to these people who don't want me here so that I can be
Right.
successful. And I was like, I don't need to be like going in this uphill battle. And I had a friend in a similar position
Wow.
who was also selling. And, I told
And
her,
I have a new
like,
clothing line too. So I've been selling since 2020. So I've started going to these different, shops and stuff. So that you're putting that in perspective for me now. This is a where it is like, okay, okay, it all makes sense because you try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
yeah,
You want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You want to go open-minded. And then suddenly you remember, oh yeah, I'm a brown skinned woman.
it's such a thing that people I don't think could take into account. I mean, and I would say it's not every shop. There's absolutely other shops that are not like
Yes.
that. The surf industry as a whole, hopefully it's changing, but there definitely are places that they don't want to hear you out. And
Yeah.
it's so there's another thing like had a friend that she's white passing but she's brown and she was like no I don't think it's because you're brown it's I'm white passing and they treat me the same way and I realize that there's also this like the
And
internal
but you ain't
feeling
black though, because
ex-
you ain't black. You probably have curly hair. You still, but you know what? Those are the
right.
biracial women kind of get on my nerves because they do be like that sometimes, They kind of get on my nerves because they will discount. And it
Hmm.
depends too. If they have I would say a white mom versus a black mom. The ones with the black mom, they
Mm,
they they see things differently because they have a black mom and they see her experiences. But
yeah,
the ones with the white mom maybe teach them, that to be a little bit um uh what do you call it, biased or like bliss, not
yeah,
even recognize things like that. So yeah, I've definitely seen the two. And this is why too it's hard for me to hang around certain type of people because when you are a realist, when you are open-minded, but also very highly aware,
yeah,
it's very hard
yeah,
because you realize how many people just let things go past. And I'm not the
yeah,
kind of person that's walking with a chip on my shoulder. I'm not looking
right,
for somebody to, do
right,
something to me. I'm
right,
actually always in my femininity. I'm always, I only get up the aggression. I only pop out as a fierce person when I feel like my life might be in danger
yes,
or or this is, you are trying or something, this microaggression is happening and it needs to be
Yeah.
called out, so people don't realize, can't do this to every person, that we're not all alike.
Right.
And then I can step back into my femininity again.
Yes.
I can relax.
Right.
But it's hard to relax when you're just letting things go and it just keep happening and keep happening and you're just letting it go the whole time because you don't end up feeling good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure if it's, I mean, boomers are still alive, and I had made this TikTok video. This guy, this guy had said on a meme, where they ask you a question and then you get to stitch the video. And he said, um, something about, do you really want to, he was talking about the older generation and he said something about, do you really want to call me Ania or something, Ania. And I jumped on and I said, I think the same way, because when I go to when I go out to Dana Point and I'm at these like surf swap meets and they have these like big surf conventions and all the boomers are there and they have these, beautiful long boards and all this stuff. And I'm talking with them for a while and learning about the 50s style of surfing.
Yeah.
And when they shout out something like 50s forever, and I'm like, oh, so tell me about 50s forever. How was it then? And did you surf with people of color? How was the segregation for you? And everybody act like nothing happened. Oh, we all just got along. Nothing happened. Everything was so good. And nobody has, as a Gen X, you should be able to talk to me. I can
Yeah.
understand younger generations, you not under, maybe, I don't know. But we should be
Right.
able to, I know your mindset I know the boomer mindset. You should be able to, we should be able to have a conversation. And they never know nothing. They never want to discuss it. Never, oh yeah, you knew the beach was segregated. You knew
Right.
this happened. You wasn't the one that fought for this to happen. You didn't fight against it. You didn't bring people of color to the beach with you. They
Right.
weren't put in the movies. They weren't put in the videos. When they showed all these beach culture films from the
Right.
1950s and 60s, not one Black person, not one Asian person, not one Latin person was in the video. So what happened? Nobody knows anything ever. So it's hard for me to take people serious. It's hard for me to hang
Yeah.
around a lot of different people because of that, because it's like, I don't want you to discount my experience. I'm
Yeah.
not wearing my experience on my shoulders. I'm not going through the world like that. I wouldn't have gotten this far in life if
You're
I
right.
if I was that way, you know.
Right.
So I'm not carrying this, but it is a part of my experience, and that needs to be validated.
Yeah.
You need to understand that this is here. If we are going to heal, if we are going to grow, if we are going to have a real friendship, you need
Yeah.
to recognize this. You know what I'm saying? We can't be going through, because then it happens like that where we're on the water and these
Yeah.
microaggressions happen and they're just like, oh, they're just having a bad day. To me,
Right.
they're having it to me, but not to you.
Right.
So what the hell? You know?
I love that you can hold like what you call feminine, like feminine energy, like you dancing on the beach, but concurrently still be somebody who stands up for what you believe in, who is proud of what you're representing in the water, and who is
Yeah.
strong about it, and not afraid to speak up and say something, and not worried about what other people are going to think of you. Well, I mean, because
Mhm.
let's be frank, like they're going to think it anyways, regardless. They're
Yeah.
making their judgments. But I think that is something that people don't realize, that you can be both at the same time. You can be
Yes.
strong, you can be feminine, you can be fun, you can still
Yes.
feel great in the water, but stand up for yourself all at the same time.
Mother Nature is fierce. I don't think of it as any type of masculinity. Mother Nature is
Yeah.
fierce. Mother Nature is ferocious. A lioness is ferocious, but it's not like, Mother Nature is beautiful. It's beauty. It's, flowers. It's gorgeous. It's opulent, but it also can kill your ass.
Yeah.
It also is dangerous. It's also, be mindful, be humble. So, we have that in us. We have Mother Nature in us. So, if we understand that, because people, there's a lot of conversation of what's masculine,
Yeah.
masculine women versus feminine women. And oh, she's in her femininity. Oh, she's in her masculinity. No, Mother Nature is fierce, and I
Mm-mm.
can be fierce too. If you
Yeah.
get me there, I'm going to be fierce. But then I can go back to calm after, and sometimes I just have to get aggressive right away in the water just to have a good experience. But
Yeah.
if you are just
Yeah.
calm the whole time and you keep seeing things going, it just messes up
Yeah.
your whole thing. You know? And
I
and
I
once you get it out the way, once you just get out of the way, usually that guy catches a wave and he goes
yeah.
down some. He just leaves because
Right.
they're not very. They don't have a real good backbone.
Yeah.
They're just banking on the stereotype that you're going to bow down,
Yeah.
that you're going to, and a lot of people do. Sometimes people do. They think you're
Right.
just going to bow down and just be submissive and everything's going to be okay. But when you stand up for yourself, that stereotype is still in their head like, oh shit, she might beat me up. So they go down and way. So whatever works, whatever works. Yeah, I'm gonna beat you up. I actually had to threaten like four guys in the water. I was at Porto, and Porto is one of those places too that either gonna have a good day or a bad day. Either the parking lot is everybody's friendly or everybody's not. So I'm paddling out to the lineup. There's these four teenage guys. They were anywhere from 18 to 24 years
Mhm.
old. And they're in the lineup and I'm paddling out. And every time I'm trying to pass the impact zone, I'm getting smashed, smashed, smashed. And because these guys are like literally, and I was waiting for,
Yeah.
I was
Well,
waiting for the calm part and I kept moving my board to the part of, where they wasn't coming down the line. And every time I moved, they moved. And they just kept trying to,
mm,
block me. And I'm paddling up and I'm having to duck dive the waves. And after a while, I'll just say it, fucking white boys. I was like, you privileged ass white boys. I'm like, I'll kick all y'all asses. I'm from Detroit. You're just a privileged ass white boy that's from the suburbs. You don't know anything. You're not tough. I'm fucking tough. And the whole lineup left. And I had that spot, and then there was some older guys down the way, and they was like, "Come over here with us. The waves are better anyway." You know. I mean, they didn't really address it, but they was just like, "Come over with us." And I ended up having a good time with the guys, but I literally had to make those four guys leave. And then when I got out the water, I mean, there was a lifeguard tower right across, and I remember going to the lifeguard, and I'm like, "Hey, did you see that? Did you see the, aggressive guys that was, trying to hit me with their boards, and they had short boards with the fins.
yeah.
I'm not too I think that's where my aggression comes from.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I know a lot of women who have got stitches, beautiful
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
who've gotten cut across the face, who've had to have plastic surgery, who've gotten, real bad
Yeah.
injuries from getting cut with fins. So if
Yeah.
I see you trying to put my life in danger, I'm not
Yeah.
going to play around. I'm not
Yeah.
going to mess around. I'm going to say something right away. I might even,
Yeah.
sometimes I have hit a guy in the water. I've actually like went around and actually smacked the guy. Because it's like you saw me. And some
Yeah.
guys will cut you off. If they have their friends in the water that's learning, they'll keep cutting you off on the
Yep.
way. Just for that guy. Or sometimes I have to cuss out parents because like
They're pushing their kids
white
in.
yeah
Yeah.
white guys and their kids, they'll be like,
Yeah.
go, 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 and they won't teach them etiquette. And then I
Right.
have to teach the guy, this is the proper etiquette. And they get mad. I've been surfing here for 40 years. I said, oh, yeah? Well, you don't know a lot. You don't know, and then they get embarrassed in front of their kids. Well, you don't know etiquette at all. You should teach your children etiquette. How do you know? Why shouldn't I know? Why? You know? And it goes to those things. So it's just like, and then there's days where I'm just like, oh my God, I just don't want to be dealing with none of this. And
Yeah.
there's this days where I'm just overwhelmed. I'm just like, you know what? I just don't even want to deal with nothing. I'll go surf a really bad spot with the worst wave ever where nobody is, just so I don't have to be bothered. And
Yeah.
I might not even catch a good wave. I might be in a whitewash, just so I don't have to deal with cussing nobody out for the day, you
Yeah.
know. And sometimes if I'm wrong, I apologize. If I'm wrong, I'm like, oh my God, cut you off. Or, like when I go to Huntington Beach sometimes, they be like, hey, this is a freeway and you're in a freeway. And I'm like, my bad. And if they just let me apologize, everything is fine.
Right.
But if they keep going after I apologize,
Right.
I flip the hell out. Let me apologize and let's just be quiet.
Right.
You go your way, I go my way. We all gonna have a good day. You ever
Yeah.
experienced that too, where once you apologize, somebody just keep going?
You know, I don't know if I blocked out a lot of a lot of experiences.
Oh,
There's
how long have you been surfing?
I've been serving for like 13 years. I
Oh,
have a handful of ones that like stick out to me, really similar to you, saying like
mhm,
in the sense of like once you start to endanger me, my voice
mhm.
is gonna go, I'm gonna raise my voice. Like, what else do you want me to do? If you're gonna put me in danger, I'm gonna make you
Right.
see that this is not right. Um, and but I think like in times that maybe that would have happened, it would have been
Mhm,
much, much earlier on where I might have not known enough about what was going on in general
mhm.
anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so it would have been harder for me to like pinpoint those kind of experiences compared to the things that happen. Not as much now. I think I don't know what's changed as much now. Like I think as I've become better, I've used my body language more to just show like I'm not, you can't push me around. And it
Uh-huh.
resonates with, I would say, 95% of the lineup, but
Yes.
people still want to drop in on me for some reason, even though it's like, but
Especially
I
when you go
feel,
to a new place, right? Especially when you're
yeah,
like at a new break and no and somebody's not seen you before. And
yep,
it's always that one person who know that you're
yep,
not a regular and they just feel like you can tell because they stare at you.
yeah.
As soon as you paddle out to the lineup, they're just looking at you with a blank stare. And you're just minding your own business. And every now and then you can see them staring at you. And then the next thing you know, here they come cutting off your wave. And you're like, I knew it was you.
Like you knew from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like definitely like my experience in lineup has definitely evolved as I've figured out ways to use my body language. Like,
That's good.
yeah, if it's a bigger day, I will purposefully take a wave that might not stay open just to
Mm,
show that do not drop in on me on the next big wave because I will
wow.
take it. Yeah. So
Wow.
I'll take something that might close
Go
just to show
ahead.
like I'm gonna, yeah. And it's and things like that. So I get mixed, like I do feel now more like people that'll try to surf on my heels, like I'll just kind of turn around and look and then they'll back off a little bit. So I think the confidence there has really helped in the experience. But
Yes.
I would say a couple years ago, more like 2020, 2021, oh, I was getting it a lot more. And I was up in LA too. So LA, the breaks are a lot more cramped, right? And a lot more
Yes.
consolidated. I was getting in a lot more like microaggressions, a lot more things where I had to verbally say something.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, like I remember getting in a microaggression a thing over in Topanga, and like it was going on like back and forth for a while, and then finally some guy was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm not okay. Like you can
Wow.
see, you know what I mean?" I'm like,
Yes.
I don't understand. Like you can see what's going on. You know that this is not okay, but it's that same thing, and you're the only one out there standing up for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Topanga can be
Yeah.
aggressive. This is why I travel. This is why I'm
Mm.
in Ventura or San Diego. This is why I drive an hour, hour and a half sometimes to surf because I find that out further, sometimes people are a lot more chill.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they're more chill. They just have a different kind of way. They're a lot more
Yeah.
relaxed. I don't know why. But, I mean, sometimes it depends on sometimes,
Yeah.
but I would say the etiquette is a lot more there. Like they teach a lot more
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
at the point breaks
Right.
than they do in this area. Malibu is just a shit show.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Malibu, I always want to fight when I go to Malibu. I really try not to go there a lot because I
Yeah.
always want to fight. I mean, as
Yeah.
soon as I get in the water, I'm ready to fight somebody. And
Yeah.
I one time I had went with one of my friends because one of my friends live in Atlanta and he's a surfer and he comes here once a year, once or twice a year. And so when he comes, we just surf for the whole week, 2 weeks together. And we're like traveling up and down the coast because as you know, a lot of surfers don't like to travel. They don't like to travel
Yeah.
and they just want to stay at one or two
Yeah.
breaks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Right.
What is that about? It's so boring. I can't be at one break. And so he comes and we go. And then I remember we were at Malibu and I'm like, I'm only here because of you, because I
Yeah.
hate this break.
Yes.
And I was in the lineup. I'm almost there for 40 minutes. I'm watching the same four people catch wave after wave,
Right. Yeah.
catch a wave, paddle back in, catch a wave. And I'm in the lineup. I'm next. So I let them three, four times, and then I just had to go. And I
Yeah.
hear them, hey, 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 trying to cut me off, and I just ignore them. And my bro was like, somebody, you have to cut somebody off, somebody going. I'm like, oh well. And they'll come around me, and after a while, I just ding their board. And they're like, oh my God, you dang my board. We just have collisions. And
Yeah.
then one time, the same day, I'm in the water, right? I'm paddling for a wave, and people will just sit in front of you and look at you and do like this. And they see that you're about to catch the wave. They see the wave coming. They see you're in the right of way. You're about to paddle for the wave or take off for the wave. And then they don't move. So
Yeah.
I thought that to the last minute. So I thought this chick was gonna move and she didn't. And I literally went over her head. The board went over her head. I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
curved the board, but I guess she was moving around. She was subtly moving around and just thought I wasn't gonna catch it. So I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
if I see somebody's about to catch the wave and we're right here, I'm
Right.
probably gonna move over a little
Right.
bit.
Right.
Or,
Right.
I'm angling my board to move and you don't move, you move into me instead because you just feel like you have privilege. I'm just gonna run you over. And I
Right.
remember the whole line, it was like, oh, oh my God. And I was like, my bad, you know. And I had dinged like two boards and people looking at the boards after that, when I got back in the lineup, everybody had great etiquette. It was like everybody was taking turns. I was able to catch a wave, but I had to hit two boards
Yeah.
and run over a woman's head, run on top of her head before I had my respect. Why did I have to do that?
Right.
And then
Right.
everybody, of course, looking at you like, oh my God, you're like the worst person in the world. Oh, now I am. I was so nice to you. I was
Yeah.
I used proper etiquette, but now,
Right.
okay, oh well. Now, hopefully you remember my face for next time.
Yeah. What advice do you have for women and people of color that are going out in the lineup to really embody that confidence?
Mhm.
I mean, I want to almost say like the burden of having to embody the confidence of
Yes,
going
exactly.
out, like let's be honest, but really to be able to go out there and stand their ground or be able to hold both the joy of being out and
Mhm.
surfing and the confidence and feeling good about being able to stand your ground and stand up for yourself at the same.
That that's an excellent question. I think first 1 or 2 years you should surf with a group
Yeah.
or with people. I don't feel like you should be alone because you don't know enough that's going on.
Yeah.
Maybe you can, but I don't. Of course, confidence is just not built right away. It's a muscle that you build over time. It's achieving goals. It's learning a lot. So I would say learning everything you can about etiquette, learning everything you can about the ocean, reading the waves, reading where you're at, understanding self-awareness, understanding where you are. Because a lot of times it's the lack of self-awareness, the lack of being
Mhm.
aware of reading the room of the consciousness. And this is how a lot of women too put their self in danger
Mhm.
because you have a lack of self-awareness. You have a lack of
Right.
reading the room of your environment. You want to just be so happy. Of course, you need to be happy, but you also have to understand what the gift of fear feels like,
Mhm.
where you're at in your environment. Because honestly, the ocean is still, very
Yep.
unpredictable. It's still a dangerous place. It's still an extreme sport. So you still have to go with humbleness toward this water, toward being in the ocean, toward wherever you are, you know. And that's what I always remember. So being in a group, I think being in a group and surfing with people for the first 2 years, three
Yeah.
years, I think I surfed with
Beautiful.
three years, 4 years actually, that I surfed with people. I didn't always go along. If I went alone, it was, I was only in a whitewash somewhere.
Yeah.
But, going to different breaks alone, you just don't know what happens. So
Right.
I don't suggest that you go alone, be with the group. And and then you have people with you as a group, because that was the best thing that I did. I was surfing with a group of people. I was collecting the kind of people I want to surf with, like, especially when you're a beginner and
Yeah.
you see somebody that look like you or in the same, or might be on the same level. You're like, hey, you want to meet here? Next time, let's surf together. And then you just build from there. Maybe that's your person, or maybe you find 3 people or 4 people to always surf in a group with.
Yeah.
And you do that for a while until, you know, because people are going to fall off eventually, maybe, or, you'll have your chance. But surfing is a journey. It's a journey
Right.
over time that you just build, and have a camera on your board. That helps you. People hate to see cameras on the board, but so what? I think, especially as minorities, um, the camera actually saves you a lot of times and things. People are less likely to do stuff when they think the camera is on. And it's
Mm.
funny because sometimes people will be like, is that camera on? And I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, why you asking me if the camera's on?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does it matter? But I get that question sometimes. Oh, is your camera on? Or, oh, do you live around here? That's another thing. The self-awareness and reading the room,
Yeah.
reading your environment. Where are you at? How does the parking lot feel?
Yeah.
Does it feel inviting? Are people just looking at you like, sometimes you can feel it in the parking lot. You can go in the parking lot and just see the faces.
Yep. Yep.
If people are, have a good spirit, or everybody look like they own one. And sometimes I'll pass right through the parking lot and go to the next beach. I don't have to be there. You
Yeah.
need to feel it. So
Yeah.
self-awareness, being aware of your environment, is so important. That just goes right across the board in anything in life. That's
Yeah.
how it's a survival technique. It's being aware. Everybody's not friendly. Everywhere you go is not a friendly environment. Everywhere is not pushing it. So once that happens, then you build the confidence with it, because there's self-awareness and who you are, and understanding what environment you are, and is it your day? Do you are you is it your day to be in a unpredictable environment? Sometimes it just ain't your day. Sometimes you just don't feel like it. Even 11 years later, for me,
Yeah.
sometimes I just if it's a big day and I don't feel like it, I maybe worked a lot, I might have stayed up too late. I might have only had 4 hours of sleep. I might just be in a whitewash for the day, you
Yeah.
know. And then there's some days I want a challenge. So everything comes back to just that self-awareness. And it's funny because I always see, with confidence, I always see like guys who go in the water and they're like with their board and they're walking to the water all confident for the day, and they just get slammed as soon as they get in the wave. It's always the people that go to the water with the most confidence and walking like a badass that end up just getting wrecked and don't know what they're doing. So the people I learned that go to the water humble and with a sense of, awareness, are like the best people in the water, are the
Yeah.
ones who ride in the best waves and stuff like that. So confidence definitely has to come from within it's not aggressive, it's not outward, it's a humbleness. It's a
Yeah.
humbleness in yourself, a self-awareness, understanding your environment. Does this feel like the good place? Oh, I just go to the next beach because I ain't feeling it. Do the water feels inviting today? If it doesn't feel inviting, maybe it ain't your day. Maybe you feel like an inviting day, but always be aware. So I would say that was a long-ended response though.
Well, thank you so much, Mimi. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
You
Um,
too. And we have
let
to surf together
Yes, we
sometimes. How come
do.
we have?
Okay, I'm in San Diego, so you let me know.
Oh, you're in San
Yeah.
Diego.
Yeah.
I gotta come there.
Yes,
Where are
please.
you in San? Well, I don't want to ask you online because I don't
Oh,
like blowing up people's faces. Because
I'm all the way in South County, but yeah, it's
okay,
so yeah,
I'll,
anytime we'll dance on the beach beforehand.
that
I
sounds
look forward to
amazing.
it.
Yes, this summer for sure. We definitely have to go.